Roger,
hello.
fill us in. What do you think is the biggest waste of taxpayers' money?
Politics, politicians, and Parliament, frankly.
I feel personally offended.
I'm very sorry, but you asked me the question.
Yep.
That's my answer. Yeah, I think tremendous waste, and the greatest examples recently are the Lindsay Hoyle thing and all that debating, all that time lost. There are so many problems in this country that we should be dealing with. And, you know, a war overseas, when we have problems at home, and so much time and expense spent on that, as if Hamas, as if the Palestinians, as if Israel are going to listen to the British Parliament and what they have to say. I just personally felt it was a waste of time. I think, you know, when George Galloway says this is for Gaza, I think, you know, a foreign conflict has infiltrated into the collective national consciousness here, perhaps a bit too much. I think we've been very influenced by social media and television, which we didn't have in previous conflicts. Imagine if when Britain dropped bombs on Dresden, not caring who was in what buildings, just blow the whole place to smithereens. If we'd had Jeremy Bowen and Orla Guerin reporting on that every night, you'd have even more people in the streets than we do now. Now, I'm not trying to minimize anything, but I'm saying that's had a tremendous effect, and I think the media has milked it for what it's worth, and the politicians have gotten wrapped up in it and wasted a huge amount of time, resource, and money following it when they should be dealing with the cost of living crisis, knife crime, etc., etc.
Well, I think that's a message that certainly will resonate with a lot of people watching and listening at home. But let's talk about that budget. The Chancellor's got some big decisions to make, and of course this could be his final intervention before that general election. What are you hoping to see from the budget, and what do you actually expect to see from the budget?
Not a lot, not a lot. I've lost faith in Jeremy Hunt long ago. I think he gaslights us, he dissembles, he obfuscates. I mean, I'm trying to stay away from a word that starts with L, but I don't think he's honest with us. November 22, we had a 55 billion pound black hole, which wasn't there 2 weeks before, in order to scare us into accepting 25 billion pounds of new taxes, which he actually introduced in the form of dozens of stealth taxes, rather, so that he could say, oh, I haven't raised the tax rate. And more than half, 30 billion pounds of that 55 billion pound black hole disappeared 48 hours later. Never, government cuts, services cuts, never to be heard of again. In his latest autumn statement, he said that he had made the largest tax cuts, you know, in many, many years. And of course, I couldn't count the number of think tanks that within 5 minutes responded, yes, but the net effect of this is to raise our taxes to the highest rate since 1948. It just goes on and on. It's all smoke and mirrors. This is a gentleman who has not spent 24 hours in his entire career inside a financial firm of any kind, and he's running the finances of this country. I really have little hope. He is going to, I've just tweeted that I'm so annoyed that he's still, with Sunak backing him, talking about favoring the wealthy by abolishing the inheritance tax, which gets you a measly $7 billion in favor of the wealthy, and still, despite the overwhelming evidence of its being needed, ignoring the poorer earners of this country and raising the and the pensioners, and raising the tax threshold from 12,570 pounds to 20 grand, so that people are not affected by the fiscal drag that these two geniuses, I'm sorry, I'm just so angry, put in place, you know, some years ago.
Well, we are seeing that. I mean, I remember when the personal income tax threshold, it was about £5,000 or £6,000, wasn't it, in 2010, and raised up to that 12,500 mark, which was seen as a really positive, progressive taxation change to really help some of those lower earners, and yet that freeze people really are feeling.
Do you know what it feels like to be earning 30, 40,000 pounds? The national average is 35,000, Dehenna. Do you know what it feels like to be earning 38 grand and all of a sudden you do some extremely good work and you get a bonus and you go over 50 and your tax rate doubles? How about taking a second job because you can't pay the bills and your overall tax rate effectively jumps up by a huge amount because you go over these thresholds that haven't been moved in line with the inflation that these two have allowed the Bailey-Osirus and his stubborn colleagues at the Bank of England to create, where those interest rate raises did nothing whatsoever to curb inflation, by the way. That's another program. The kind of inflation we have cannot be curbed by raising interest rates. They did nothing. So it's really making me very, very angry. I'm foaming, I'm frothing.